let's talk about Raw, but we're going to be pretty quick with it because I'm kind of tired. But there is a big lawsuit also. Wait, let's back up. Back up. Monday Night Raw from November 27th, 2023. Let's get into this lawsuit real quick because it popped up. And I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to go through it. Just kind of going to give my general idea, give you a general idea of what's going on, and talk about it. For starters, I know usually when there's a big lawsuit, the first thing that comes to my mind is unless it's built on something legitimate, it's probably settlement bait. And this one is settlement bait. So it says that WWE UFC merger challenged in lawsuit alleging sham sales process for the mega deal. So basically, there is a pension fund in Ohio that truly believes that WWE put forth, quote, a conjured up sham sales process designed to favor Endeavor and, quote, exclude other bidders seeking to axe McMahon, disregarding at least two all-cash offers with better terms. They do not name these companies that supposedly had better offers with better terms. These companies were not mentioned. The article reads, and I quote, according to the complaint, this included undisclosed companies, underline that, submitting cash offers at $95 to $100 and $90 to $97.50 per share, but because they contemplated cashing out WWE stockholders and barred McMahon from rolling over his shares, which would have signaled his, quote, complete ouster from the wrestling world, the board, quote, never bothered to make counter proposals, the suit states. So basically, they chose to make an all stock deal with Endeavor. But you have to understand that it wasn't just money that was on the table here, not just Vince himself, but also what they were trying to accomplish. The point of selling the company was not just to sell the company to the highest bidder. That's stupid. Sometimes you sell not at the highest bidder, but somebody who can actually help the company. They sold the company to Endeavor specifically because Endeavor had what they call the flywheel, the ability to maximize things that WWE already does very well. One of the things that they wanted to maximize was their TV negotiation contracts and be able to package up with UFC to do certain things. They also wanted greater sponsorship fees. They didn't just want to sell the company because Vince didn't want to have the company anymore. They were selling the company specifically to Endeavor because Endeavor had a track record of increasing business in certain relevant areas of concern, being sponsorships being number one, because as I've said before, they were being beat across the head and neck by Lightshed Partners and other organizations about the lack of sponsorship fees. They also wanted to, because Endeavor had very good relationships with like ESPN and different networks like that with UFC, they wanted to be able to get involved with stuff like that. You don't necessarily have to sell the company to the highest bidder if you want to sell your company. This idea that you must sell the company to the highest bidder is incorrect. Now, you say there might have been better deals, and they didn't take those deals because that would have meant Vince was going to get kicked out, which is what the lawsuit is suggesting. But they're probably just going to suggest selling the company to other companies who don't have the track record to increase business actually would hurt the company, because you're turning over the company from people who know what they're doing to people who don't know what they're doing but have a lot of money. People who are going to actively harm the business. For us, the people who are fans of the company, we haven't noticed that much of a change despite the fact that they sold the company. As opposed to if they'd have sold it to whoever the highest bidder was and decided to take the goddamn thing apart. All right, so we don't know, who these bidders were, what the information that they might have had, or whatever the case may be, or that they would have ousted Vince, because you can't say for sure that Vince would have been ousted by the highest bidder anyway. That's why I think this is settlement bait. It's trying to suggest that Vince knew he was going to get kicked out. That's why he didn't want to sell his shares. But you can't tell the guy who to sell his shares to. He can sell his shares to whoever he wants to sell his shares to. So it is what it is. Ultimately, everybody's running around saying, yes, we're finally going to get, this is a lawsuit. And then, of course, it was filed well after the merger was actually completed. So this is not about stopping the merger. It's not about, rolling back the merger or anything like that. It's just they're looking for more money. And since these people are from Ohio, they're probably all cousins anyway. All right, let's move on. Let's get right into CM Punk. He cut a promo at the end. Some people were very disappointed in the promo because it wasn't anything fiery in it that buried AEW, which you got to take into account. Probably a lot of NDAs and stuff like that involved with it. But he did say some things in it that was interesting. I'm not going to go through the entire promo. I'm just going to hit some of the finer points. The number one thing he said that was in it was very, very interesting when he said, I'm home. And I know that one hurt. Just like when Cody said it when he came back, that one is an emotional arrow through the chest for the AEW fan base because they feel like they're home. They think like AEW should be your home. But he says WWE is his home. He says that he's concerned or he was worried or scared how true these two words might be. Now, those words are pretty poignant to me. He goes back and forth, throughout history with his, bitterness and dislike for WWE. But it almost comes across like a familial relationship, in a very weird way. Where, you argue with your parents and you argue with like your brothers and sisters. And sometimes you get tired of them and you take it out on them. You might beef for a little while. And then ultimately you work it out and you come back. You're welcome back to the Thanksgiving Day dinner. You're welcome back to whatever the case may be. Sometimes you gotta blow things up. Sometimes you gotta yell at people. Sometimes you gotta scream at people. And if you think that they're not listening, you scream louder. And I get it. And he says that it feels like a family reunion backstage. And I thought, again, poignant. This is a guy who grew up in this system, and he has a difficult relationship with pretty much everybody and everything at this point. So I get it. I saw somebody say that he grew up in an abusive household. So, of course, he would think this is home. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's pretty familiar to him. It's the devil that he knows, and in terms of WWE. And I think it ties very well into the later part of the promo where he starts talking about 10 years, the people haven't forgotten him. They never stopped chanting his name. The voice of the voiceless have found their voice again, and that he loves them and he's here for them. And he said in order to get what he needed out of this place, he had to leave this place. And that was something that he was taught by a wise man. And of course, we know the wise man being Paul Heyman, and that's an old adage when it comes to WWE, and that you can't get everything you want out of WWE unless you leave, become bigger, and then come back. It's out of everybody who talks a lot about, Jesse Ventura and all the union stuff, they completely forget that it was Jesse Ventura who made that public. That, Vince McMahon told him personally, the way to make it in the wrestling business is to leave and come back as a bigger star. And that's why he left to do movies. It's not just to because of the union pay and everything, but also he left to go get that Hollywood credit. Once people can see him on TV or whatever, he's worth more money to Vince when he comes back. And that's what happened with Hulk Hogan. Vince Sr. said, don't go do Rocky 3. Vince Jr. loved that he left and did Rocky 3. So what CM Punk is telling people is that, hey, sometimes you guys got to leave. You got to leave, become bigger if possible, and then you come back. And that's essentially what he did. He says, in order to get what I wanted out of this place, which probably means less time on the road, probably more money, all this kind of stuff. So I get it. He's giving you some gems here, but the promo is not great. I'm going to be honest with it. It's not great, but he is dropping some gems here. Then he gets into the work stuff. The work stuff is basically everybody. Not everybody has welcomed him back. Some people are scared. Some people are afraid. They're afraid that the brass ring is in his back pocket. That on the microphone, at the commentary table, he's still the best, and that the guys here compete to be the best every week, but the best in the world has not been here. And but he's here now. And then off microphone, he says, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make money. And that seems to be the line that everybody liked, because it means that he's here about his business. And I like that. I like that last line. But the promo itself was, it was kind of mushy, you know? Everybody wanted CM Punk to come out and be pissy and full of vinegar, and I think they're going to save that. Because for starters, you can't do that because of the NDA, so there's no doubt there's an NDA involved. I mean, let's just put that on the table flat. There's no way Tony Khan fired him and didn't have him sign an NDA, some kind of cash out or whatever. So he's not going to be able to say whatever he wants in these promos. He probably won't be able to talk about it much at all. In fact, Tony Khan, when he was asked, he stammered and said that he couldn't talk about it legally. So that means that there's probably some paperwork there that prevents them to talk about each other. And since they didn't shoot an angle, they wanted it to basically give him the opportunity to let him talk to the fans and say, hey, I'm back, guys, and I've changed. And that was pretty much it. You know, I've changed. I'm a different guy now. And everybody loves me, and I love them, and this is great. And it's like, yeah, okie dokie. But the promo wasn't worth waiting through this entire crappy show for. And that was a disappointing element to me. You know, as somebody who is not a huge CM Punk fan anymore, you know, you asked me to sit through a 3-hour slog, and they really tested you with this show. My goodness, it was so terrible. But to ask me to sit through this for this 10-minute promo that was basically him telling everybody I'm back home, and then vaguely mentioning that certain people are threatened by his return, I liked it. I liked that element of it. But I did not want to wait 3 hours to hear that. Even if the promo was great, it would have had to been a knockdown, drag out, fantastic promo in order for me to sit through this fucking show. But to sit through this show, it was basically a straightforward, I'm home. This is where I should have always been. I got what I wanted. I'm back in this place. Hey, let's go make some cash. Let's go do some business. You know, okay. I do believe that his first promo in AEW was more meaningful because he was not handicapped by something like an NDA. He also had a lot of bitterness built up over the years, and he said exactly what that audience wanted to hear. Tailoring your promo to the audience is a useful skill, you know, and the WWE audience don't care about AEW, not really, you know. So the idea to do is spend a certain amount of time dedicated to ripping on AEW, they don't really care that much about them. While the AEW audience cares tremendously about you dissing WWE. It's part of the ritual. It's the same thing with TNA, where in old day WCW and stuff like that, it's what they wanted. They come to hear you get on a live microphone and diss the other company, diss Vince, diss some of your coworkers. And look, that stuff might show up. It might. But not doing it right now is not a problem. I just have an issue with how long this damn show is and how terrible it was. We're still going to go through it, but this was a terrible show. I understand why he might have been handicapped in the promo. But then I also think that the idea of the promo is that he's changed. And that he might be a kinder, gentler CM Punk. And that he's not really all that interested in creating that drama anymore. And bringing that heat on himself. And that he's there for business. That being said, though, I think him saying, I'm home, probably hurt them a lot more than if he'd just called AEW the shittiest wrestling company of all time and he wiped his ass with AEW and fuck Tony Khan. Him saying, I'm home, this is where I belong, this is where I always should have been, yada, yada, yada. That was probably more offensive to the AEW fan base. That was probably going to set them off even more than if he just went off on AEW. Because it implies emotional content. It is emotional cheating. It's that old. It's not like you're flirting, you know. This is like legitimate. You're in an emotional relationship with somebody. Like, he is in an emotional relationship with WWE. Something that might supersede what he was doing in AEW. So you're kind of, from the AEW fans' perspective, that's probably more offensive. And it was, again, similar when Cody left. It was probably the exact same thing. The idea that, how dare you come over here with us and then go back there and then say you're home again. So it's almost like they had an affair and AEW was just the mistress, you know. I'm about to go back to my wife. You know, I had fun with you guys. You know, it was great. You know, we did our thing. What we had was gone. You know, what we had is over. Now I got to go back to my fat wife and my 5 kids. And that's kind of what it seems like in this situation, where emotionally you're attached somewhere else. While it might be fun to be over here every once in a while, but this is where home is, where the heart is. I can see that being incredibly offensive to the AEW fan base. So I don't think he needed to go as hard on AEW as some would expect. I think the emotional element of it was enough. But I don't think the promo was that great, if we're being honest. Especially not to sit through 3 hours of this fucking show. All right, let's go through the show. All right, I'm going to try to be very quick. Randy Orton, absolute tank. Do you see how yoked Randy... CM Punk coming back absolutely took my brain, you know, in a different direction when I did the review, which is usually why I don't do live reviews. And I actually give myself a time to sit down and think about it. But Randy Orton is a monster. He's a meat wagon. Like, did you see his neck? What did he do to his neck? I don't know what Randy Orton is on, but I'm pretty sure he's pissing through cups at this point. There's just no way. How old is this man? He's got to be like 44. He's in that same age group with Punk, right? There's no way he's that big. He's bigger than when he left. You know, like, what the hell? Anyway, Randy Orton came out there. He's being jolly old brother Orton. You know, he's slapping the hands of the fans, and whenever Orton is acting like this, he's about to turn heel. You could just, I know it's coming. So he's out there, says that he had never been in the War Games before. So to be a part of it, to make that history, to make that moment, it was important for him. Then he said he had some unfinished business with the Bloodline. He's got a whole bag of receipts for the Bloodline. And then he says he got some for every single member. And he means every single member of the Bloodline. He's got something for them. So Rhea Ripley comes out there. She gets in his face. She starts talking about how, you know, Randy isn't the kind of guy who likes being upstage. He's also not the kind of guy who does favors. Then she starts talking about how the Judgment Day are the most dominant force, blah, 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 blah. Dominic Mysterio and JD McDonough attacked Randy Orton. He fought them both off, gave JD McDonough an RKO, and then challenged Dominic Mysterio to a match tonight, which, of course, Randy Orton won. That match was the most fun match of the night, by the way. But Randy wasn't done on the evening, because he had a conversation with Jey Uso backstage. Now, earlier in the promo, Randy says that he might be able to forgive, but he's never going to forget. That's why he's got a bag of receipts for the Bloodline. And then he says that him and Jey, they're good as long as Jey is out of the Bloodline. Jey says that he's out. So then Randy says, okay, so I guess we're good then. You know, and they shook. And I don't trust that. I don't trust that at all. Nah, I don't trust that one at all, bro. Randy gonna kill this dude. Randy's about to hurt Jey Uso. This is about to be naked aggression. This is about to be something else. And Randy probably needs to turn heel at this point, if we're being honest. You got CM Punk and Cody getting monstrous pops. Randy Orton got a monstrous pop too, but you don't need this many baby faces. Like, you really don't need that many, okay? Somebody got to turn heel. And I can already see it being Seth Rollins being one of them, but that's not going to be right now. But Dominic Mysterio versus Randy Orton was the in-ring main event. It was a solid enough match, and it was fun. Dominic is a fun wrestler. He's not great. He doesn't need to be. He could just work his gimmick, which is basically being a feckless, silly kid, and get tons of fucking heat. And then JD McDonough is out there basically leeching off of his heat. And it was pretty funny because some fat guy named Jelly Roll did a promo segment earlier, which led to R-Truth being there. And I was kind of embarrassed because I'm like, man, they did the first hour commercial free, and the kind of shit they were serving up was absolute trash. They made me want to change the channel. But one of the things was R-Truth looking for jelly rolls because he heard there were jelly rolls. But it was really just an artist named Jelly Roll. I thought he was a rapper. Apparently he's a country singer. I don't know. I don't know. I don't understand. All right. This is hick shit. I don't know nothing about hick shit. All right. So apparently this Jelly Roll guy who was belly bumping with Otis, R-Truth was going to look for the jelly rolls. He ended up eating jelly rolls in Judgment Day's locker rooms. He had powder all over his face. He had a powdered beard, which looks absolutely positively done on purpose. It's like a toddler eating. He's got jelly rolls and powder and shit all over the place. In the Judgment Day locker room, JD McDonough, promised that he was going to handle R-Truth, but he didn't do anything to R-Truth, actually. So Jelly Roll was backstage, and then he's at ringside. So then Dominic and JD McDonough go over there and start bothering him. And because he's a celebrity involved with a wrestling show, and these are two small heels, he's pushing them, and they're taking big bumps for him and all this kind of stuff. It was okay. It wasn't terrible. But Dominic catches an RKO and loses the match. It was fun while it lasted. All right, what else we got here? Tag team turmoil. Lord have mercy, this was awful. The Creed Brothers won. The Creed Brothers rule, by the way. And the Creed Brothers and Imperium were the last two teams. The teams featured were Alpha Academy, which was Otis and Akira Tozawa. They were defeated by DIY. Indu Share, who Michael Cole acts like he's never seen before. Wade Barrett, tell me about Indu Share. Like, these motherfuckers have been here for 4 years. They've been on this roster before. They're not new. Tell me what I need to know about Indu Share. Fill me in about Indu Share. What the fuck? They've been here forever. And then they lost to DIY. Tragedy. Absolute tragedy. DIY is defeated by the Creed Brothers. Then the Creed Brothers defeat the New Day, and they defeat Imperium to win the tag team turmoil match. So the Creed Brothers are the number one contenders for the tag team championships. Okay, I love the Creeds. And like I said, the Creeds and Imperium were very good. It was a very good match. I wish it was like just those guys wrestling and not, a turmoil match. That sucks. That gauntlet idea it's such a time eater. I hate it so much. So in the Judgment Day locker room, Finn Balor is like, oh, the Creeds, boy, they legit. And Damian Priest is staring off into, the hallway. I don't know what he's looking at. But he's sensitive. He's all sensitive, saying like, "Oh yeah, go ahead and blame me for losing." And Rhea Ripley was like, "No. We don't hold any grudges. This is a family." And then Finn Balor was like, "You're right, mate. We're still the tag team champions. We got to focus on the Creed brothers." This was all very well. I didn't like that they stopped right here because it should be they're heels, so this should be a lie. They should be talking about him behind his back and all this kind of stuff, right? Maybe they'll do it next week. But that was the general idea, is that they're pretending that Damian Priest losing is A-okay. It's all right. It's just one match is what Finn Balor says. So, they should be liars and cheaters and backstabbers. But I'm guessing they're not going to do the Damian Priest heel turn because they're going to do the Bayley one. So... Well, I shouldn't say heel turn. I should say face turn. Because, I guess it would be a face turn if Judgment Day kicks him out. So you can pretty much, hang your hat on Bayley getting kicked out of Damage Control this weekend because they're not going to do the Damian Priest one. All right. So, Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes had a big announcement. He got a monster reaction, too. People saying that Cody isn't over. Man, you guys are not listening. You need new ears. I think that he might have got a bigger pop than... Did he get a bigger pop than CM Punk? Probably not. But it was close. All right. So Cody Rhodes came out there and says that Randy Orton had been a mentor to him And Randy Orton helped him win his daddy's match. And he got teary-eyed because, you know, Cody, my daddy's match. And I'm like, oh, God, Cody, stop it. And then, of course, because he's a politician, he had to go in and get the pop. Welcome back to CM Punk. Yeah, I bet. Then he says that he wants to make some news. There's only one destination for him. He needs to finish his story, so he's going to enter the Royal Rumble. But here's the thing that really made me laugh, is that he says, I'm going to be the first entrant in the 2024 Royal Rumble match. And then he did that head snap to the crowd, and the crowd popped. I'm like, oh, brother. Okay. This guy, everything about Cody is so fake and staged. Ugh. But he's good at it. Like, he is a really good actor. All right? Because everything, you know he's phony as shit, but it's working somehow. Anyway, we get who Shinsuke Nakamura has been talking about. He's been talking about Cody. And he says that he wants Cody to set him free, and he's done waiting. He's going to bring chaos to Cody. For those of you who don't know, Chaos was the name of his stable in New Japan Pro Wrestling. It still exists as far as I know. I think Okada is now still the leader of Chaos. I don't know. I don't know nothing about New Japan. Anyway, they went from the video screen to Nakamura being in the ring, and then Nakamura spit red mist into the face of Cody Rhodes. So Cody Rhodes versus Shinsuke Nakamura is going to be the stopgap feud until Royal Rumble. I don't hate it. I honestly don't hate it. Nah. And a lot of people are going to be disappointed that Nakamura wasn't talking about CM Punk. But how would you explain that he knew CM Punk was coming? I guess you wouldn't. Well, unless they were and they just switched it to Cody. But Cody's been there the whole time and Nakamura ain't done nothing. So that doesn't make sense. But in any event, Nakamura, Cody, I'm not sure if they've worked against each other before. If they haven't, this is a fresh match. It's new. It's different. It's not a pay-per-view quality match. It's certainly a TV feud. That works for me. I don't have a problem with Nakamura versus Cody. You know, I don't have an issue with that at all. Ivar and Bronson Reed wrestled for a long time and both got counted out. They ended up fighting outside the ring, in which Bronson Reed grabbed Ivar and slammed him into the barricade. It was like a Death Valley driver into the barricade. It looked like it broke it. And then they crushed a tech guy as they fought around the ring. And then they ended up being held back by a bunch of officials and Adam Pearce and all this kind of stuff. I think I think Corey Graves called them beef planets. I don't know what the benefit of not having Bronson Reed win this match is. I guess if you got nothing else for him, having him fight Ivar is fine. But how about a clearly defined babyface and heel in this situation? That's what made this so terrible to me, because they're both heels. So there's no clearly defined babyface or heel. So who am I supposed to root for? Who am I supposed to boo? You're the one telling the story. You're supposed to tell me. You don't just let me figure it out on my own, because I just could not care about both of them, which is exactly what happened when this match happened. I was like, I don't care about either one of these guys. Zoe Stark was disappointed. She was complaining to Shayna Baszler. Shayna Baszler gave her a bit of a pep talk. Then Nia Jax came in, mocked her, and then it ended up with a challenge. Shayna Baszler told Nia Jax to shut her hole before somebody breaks her arm and sends her on another vacation, which of course is alluding to what Shayna Baszler is the last person to put hands on Nia Jax before she was fired. Zoe Stark says, I don't need you standing up for me. And I'm like, ooh. And then they ended up having an absolutely long, god-awful fucking match. Nia Jax versus Zoe Stark. And Nia Jax won the match with her Annihilator Banzai drop. I want Zoe Stark to go away. I mean, she hasn't been there long, but she's boring as shit. Kermit the Frog, she's boring as shit. Look, Nia Jax is no good, but Nia Jax at least is physically different. You know, it would be cool if you could just watch Nia Jax get body slammed, or, you know, her get picked up and power bombed or something like that. For Zoe Stark, I don't see the intrigue. And Triple H is trying very, very hard to make her happen. And everybody else is like, no. He's like, come on, give us a break. No. Okay? He's been told no 2 or 3 times on Zoe Stark, but he insists. All right, Gunther. He wants the DIY issue sorted out. He wants these guys taken care of. Ludwig Kaiser said he would do it, and then Giovanni Vinci was like, you? No, I will take care of it. And Kaiser was looking at this fool like, what is this fool talking about? And then Gunther was like, okay, well, I'll leave it to you. Like, go do your thing. Now Vinci is starting to feel himself. He's starting to smell himself a little bit. So Gunther, I guess, has said that he wants the next challenger to meet him face to face. And then he turns around and there's The Miz. The Miz says that he wants to challenge Gunther again, and he's sure that he can beat him. Gunther says that The Miz is no threat, and that he gives Miz credit. He came for a fight, and that he deserves to be in the ring, just not with him. And I thought that was brutal. That was brutal. That was a really good promo. That was brutal. Because it incentivizes The Miz to be better, and we know The Miz can be more fiery, and that The Miz can be, more in your face. This can be really good. I don't know why they had to finish clean, and then Miz just comes right back instead of just having, but Gunther shouldn't need to cheat to beat Miz, right? So, but I don't know if going back to Miz is the right thing to do, but we're in Stopgap City. Everybody that's going to be in a feud now is just to be on TV because nothing's happening throughout the entire month of December. So I can almost guarantee you they're trying to load up the TV stuff. So they're probably going to have Gunther and Miz again on TV, which is fine. I know a lot of people would prefer if we just moved on, but move on to who? That would be my question. Like, move on to who? There literally is nobody left unless you want them wrestling Gargano and Ciampa and Kofi Kingston or some shit. There literally is nobody else for him to work with, I guess, that got any kind of credibility except The Miz. Unfortunately, he's already beaten Miz. But I guess you could have him wrestle like a Kofi Kingston or something, a former Intercontinental Champion. But he's doing comedy skits now, so I guess not. All right, my favorite segment of the night, Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre. Now, what made me really like this segment, outside of Seth Rollins finally wearing men's clothes, even though I was kind of pissy about him wearing these half gloves. I don't know what those are, but I don't understand why he was wearing them. But at least he was not dressed like he came out of the women's aisle. But is that he went straight at CM Punk. The crowd is chanting CM Punk directly at him. He then egged it on and said, "Is that all you got?" Then he says that he's not going to spend one more second on that hypocrite, and he's going to move on to things that are more important, like being the World Heavyweight Champion. Now let's pause it right here. He had did a promo at a live show, I think, where he says that he's not going to spend any time on somebody who tried to tear down the company for 8 years and all this kind of stuff. So he understands what's going on, and clearly the Rollins Punk match is on the horizon. That's where we're going, and they're going to slow roll it. So while it may have made sense to put Rollins and Punk in the same ring, not doing it and letting Rollins be the guy who's kind of picking the fight is going to make you understand that Rollins is the heel in this scenario, because he's antagonizing CM Punk by calling them names and alluding to him, being very shitty to the guy. He's being very unwelcoming. He's the cousin at the family reunion that roll his eyes when you come in the room. Anyway, so Drew McIntyre interrupts this whole thing. He talks about, he congratulates Seth Rollins on winning War Games, says that he wants to put Jey Uso on the back burner and focus on being the World Heavyweight Champion because Seth Rollins was right. He lost that crown jewel. It can't blame nobody but himself. It said that he had Seth Rollins beat, but sympathy made him hesitate, and he deserved to lose, and he wants a rematch. So Seth Rollins says that he feels that Drew McIntyre deserves it, but other people deserve it more, and he's going to defend the title next week. So then Drew McIntyre says, okay, well, against who? And Seth Rollins is like, look, I'm going to shoot it straight with you. It's against Jey Uso. So Drew McIntyre let it sink in for a second, and then headbutt Seth Rollins. Then he went from that to beating Seth Rollins all on his ass. So he beat up Seth Rollins, says that this was personal. He beat Jey Uso 2 weeks ago, so he's got to be higher on the totem pole than Jey. Jey ran to the ring, and Jey and Seth Rollins fought Drew McIntyre off. Jey then teased, of course, the World Heavyweight Championship before handing it to Seth and taking over and getting the crowd to bop with him. So I love this segment. I liked it because Drew McIntyre's character, and I've said this 100 times, for people who are listening to these, I used to do character analysis, and I could still do that kind of stuff. But character analysis with Drew McIntyre, I've been doing it for 3 or 4 years now. He's still in the warrior character, and he has this what they call a transpersonal commitment, and he is obsessed with being the world champion, obsessed with being the best. He always has been. And he doesn't really care about alliances or anything else as long as the championship is within reach. And what you can see is that he doesn't really care about his personal vendetta against Jey Uso. He just wants to be the world champion, okay? So, he's willing to push aside his personal vendetta if he can become the world champion. But what he's found is that these two worlds are colliding. The person who he hates and who cost him a championship match is now about to get a championship match that he feels that he has earned and he feels that he deserves. And so now he snapped. It's an excellent piece of storytelling. And, a lot of people have been talking about, Drew McIntyre storming out. Of course, they forgot to mention that Drew McIntyre just lost the War Games. That's why he stormed out of the match. I saw the video. Like, he's holding his face, storming out of the match. He just lost. Why would you think that why would he be mad about CM Punk being there? Come on, guys. Think about it. Think about it for 1 second. Tuesday. Use your common sense. Anyway, so Drew McIntyre wants to kill Seth Rollins now because he wants to be the world champion. So this is fun. Backstage, Sami Zayn gets in Drew McIntyre's face, and he says he's not the only one that's been disappointed or humiliated in front of his hometown. He faced the same disappointments that Drew McIntyre faced, and he brushes it off and he keeps on going because he knows that it is in his future to be the world heavyweight champion. And my God, Drew McIntyre has been world champion twice already, and he's acting like a spoiled brat, and he knows that he's better than that. So Drew McIntyre stood there, absorbed this stuff from Sami Zayn and said, you know what, you're right. You're absolutely right. I'm going to go to Adam Pearce, and I'm going to tell him I need to have a match next week. It needs to be against you. So Sami Zayn just kind of stood there and was like, oh, okay, I guess. I liked all of this. They're doing a really interesting bit with Drew McIntyre because they're not trying to hard press his heel turn. They're trying to let the fans turn against him, which is the right thing to do. That's always how a heel turn is supposed to go. The crowd is supposed to turn against you. Part of wrestling, when they do the snap heel turn, where basically with like Santos Escobar, where, when he turned heel, he turned against Rey Mysterio. In turn, the fans hated him. It's okay. It can work because it works in TV, it works in movies, etc. But a better heel turn is when the crowd just turns against you. That's what happened against Bret the Hitman Hart, where as a heel, Bret Hart was Bret Hart, except people were tired of his complaining. Even if he was legitimately complaining, people were tired of his complaining. They didn't want to hear that shit anymore. And that's how we're getting with Drew McIntyre, where everybody's tired of hearing about how he got fucked by the bloodline and all this kind of... People are tired of it. And so the crowd is slowly but surely turning against him anyway. And then he starts doing heel shit, like attacking Jey Uso and attacking Seth Rollins unprovoked and beating these guys up. He is a heel, but they're letting the audience... Some people feel bad for him. Some people are with him because, hey, the bloodline did screw him over. But the majority is looking at it and say, we like Seth. We like Jey. We don't care about you and your complaints. No matter how legitimate they may be, eventually people don't want to hear it anymore. It's just a very important thing to remember. Even if you got a legitimate gripe, not everybody wants to hear about your legitimate gripe all the time. And then when you start attacking people, even people who didn't have anything to do with it, then you're the bad guy. So I really like the Drew McIntyre heel turn. But I also like that he has been denying that he's turning heel. Like, he did an interview where he said that he's not turning heel. He's a real person in a real situation. That's his approach to this. And I think that that's actually a good mindset to have. He's not going out there to be hated. He's not going out there chasing the reaction. He's letting the reaction come to him by doing things that feel natural to him. Even though it's scripted, it would be a natural thing where if you feel like you're being looked over, even though you just made the direct challenge to the champion, he's going to choose somebody else, somebody you've already beaten, and somebody who fucked you over. And you're like, wait a minute, you're going to get this guy a shot? Him over me? And, you know, it's, of course, taken to the extreme because it's pro wrestling and it has to be physical in some way. So I like the Drew McIntyre. What they're doing with Drew McIntyre, I have really enjoyed it, you know. And the fact that he continues to deny that he's a heel and thinks that you should actually sympathize with him, you should actually feel bad for him, you should actually be on his side, is getting me the idea, it's giving me vibes that he thinks he's Bret Hart. And of course, he's not going to be literally Bret Hart, but it's the same modus operandi where, hey, you see these guys cheating. Hey, you see that I could have won that match except, you know, I got screwed over. Hey, what's going on here? And everybody's kind of like, yeah, we get it. But now you're harping, you know, so I like that. The only other thing that happened on this show was Chelsea Green and Piper Niven defeated Tegan Nox and Natalya. I could have literally done anything else in my life rather than watch that shit. So 3 hours of Raw. It was terrible, as usual. It was worse than usual, actually. I did enjoy the Randy Orton segment before Rhea Ripley came out there because, you know, the Judgment Day stuff is repetitive. The Punk segment, I don't think it was great. But I can see that it's probably going to be fodder for some good content for the next couple of days. And I think Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins was a really good segment. I like how they're using Jey Uso on this show. Clearly the big stars weren't doing anything, but what they chose to do in terms of the matches were very, very boring, I think. The turmoil match was awful. Ivar and Bronson Reed, I mean, come on. But at least Dominic Mysterio was fun. The cringe comedy segments with Alpha Academy, I could do without all that Tozawa, if we're being honest. But I like the Creed brothers. I even like that Rhea Ripley mentioned that the Judgment Day hold the tag team championships that Randy Orton was trying to win when he got taken out. You know, so I guess that's where they're setting this thing up. That, you know, maybe Randy's gonna start working tag matches because he's gonna have to get a new tag team partner. Because it just seems like that's where we're going with this, where the Judgment Day is going to be the guys who end up feuding with Randy Orton. Because he wanted to be a tag team champion with Riddle, and they were feuding with the Bloodline, the Usos, and then nothing is what Randy got hurt. So now those belts are on the Judgment Day, and she's teasing him about having them. So maybe that's the direction they go with it, as a way of lengthening Randy's career, is by putting him in the tag team division. But who would his partner be? Cody? I wish they hadn't done Cody and Jey Uso if they were going to do that, though. Because, you know, I don't like the idea, but I never really was a big fan of guys having multiple tag team championships and multiple partners, especially if they're a singles act. It just always comes across as very whorish to me. You just team up with anybody, you know? Anyway. CM Punk's first night on Monday Night Raw, the show was a disaster. Punk's promo was soft, but the emotional damage it likely did to the AEW fan base is going to be beyond repair and absolutely, positively delicious. So keep on the lookout to see what the outcome of this thing is going to be, because I'm certainly going to be paying attention. But what did you guys think of CM Punk's first night back in 10 years? I'll talk to you guys later.